So hello. Welcome back to another episode. So today is going to be book 28. Right, Chris?
Yep, book 28. It is Infinite Possibilities. The Art of Living Your Dreams by Mike Dooley. So fun backstory on this book a little bit. Um, the guy that's the author of this book, I don't know how I've stumbled upon this years and years and years ago, but you ever heard of those like notes from the universe,
Mhm.
emails that you get in the morning?
Right.
So this is the guy that does the notes from the universe. His name is Mike Dooley, and
Mhm.
I got his like notes from the universe for years. Actually, I journaled about him at the last like the last like couple weeks of my daughter's journal that I was keeping for her that I wrote the book about. Anyway, as I was going through this, I always saw his little ads on the daily emails he would send from the notes from the universe or whatever, and I was like, oh, Infinite Possibilities sounds like a cool book. I'll
Mhm.
check it out someday. So I don't know, on a whim, I decided I wanted to go down and embark on this thing because this guy's all about the universe and meta and all this other stuff. I thought, hey, this would be a fun little adventure, and we'll see how it goes. So that's really what this book is. It's about like the spiritual nature of what it takes to find happiness and fulfillment, through the metamorphosis of consciousness that is taking place. I mean, it gets pretty kooky a little bit sometimes about it, but at the end of the day, like it was an interesting, fun read. Um, the reflection title on this book is Thoughts Become Things. That's really what a lot of this main book was about the concept that thoughts become things. Whatever you think manifests itself into this world, good or bad, whatever it may be. I know, Blake, I know you've talked a lot about like visualization boards and things like that. I mean, I think this is really the kind of beginning of that, and then it leads into thoughts become things, which become a visualization board, which become like people's focus, and then it becomes reality, right? Whatever you think, like that's the beauty of we've talked about this in previous books in the past of our imagination is our superpower, and the idea that we can literally conjure up things that don't exist in this world and mash up different concepts all together and somehow bring it into reality is pretty remarkable. So the my personal reflection on the idea of thoughts become things is about the book that I wrote for my daughter, or that I wrote with my daughter. So this was probably around like early July of 2020. I was almost done writing my journals for my daughter. Her original due date was July 13th. I was a few months into the journey of after losing her, and I was starting to kind of come back to reality a little bit. My imagination was starting to grow again. I was starting to, question a lot of new things and take in all this new book, all these different new topics and things I was learning about in books. And I felt like I was finally starting to kind of regain my life back a little bit, just a tiny bit. And I remember one day I was actually in the shower. True, I think I told you about this right after this happened, because I think we met, maybe like a month later. Maybe you remember the story? I don't know, but um, I was in the shower, and we have this little like window that's like a tiny little window that's
Mhm.
above the shower, tile shower or whatever. And I just got done taking a shower, and I just got done running, and I was writing to my daughter, and I was thinking a lot about, just all that we had gone through. And for some weird reason, it was like the perfect time in the middle of the day when like the noon sunlight was coming in, and it was just coming perfectly through that window. And as I was done showering, like I could see the steam just like only when it was in the light, you could see the steam just like, coming off of my body. And I was like,
Right.
but it was only when it was in the light. When I would move it out, it was gone. And when I would move it in, I could see the heat coming off, and it just reminded me like, man, there's just so many things in this world that I can't see that's going on. There's just heat radiating out of me. And like, what if you could like harness that heat source and go do something with that, just the stuff that we can't see, basically, kind of started thinking in my mind. And I don't know how I went from that moment to about 10 minutes later, I was still kind of just stuck in this thought. And I started to think about my daughter, and I started to think about, like, I know she's not here, but what if I could live my life with her every single day still? What if I could really, like, imagine her being here with me, and we could still do stuff together. We could still, go on walks with each other. We could still, read to each other, do all the things that, normal, father-daughter relationships, entail. And like, what if that was my reality? What if I just lived that way? I mean, there's things that I can't see. I don't know if she's still around me, if she's not, like I was like, what if I like actually just made that my reality? And I don't know, I just felt really, really happy about that thought. So I went immediately upstairs and I wrote the last paragraph to the book. I hadn't even started the book yet. It was I was still just journaling to her at that time. And I don't know, I just had this thought I couldn't get out of my head of like, what if I could live every day of my life with my daughter? And so I ran upstairs and started to scribble out as fast as I could kind of what I was thinking and how I would want to live my life. And I literally wrote in my Evernote, like, this is the final paragraph of the book kind of thing, is where my head was at when I wrote that. And then, fast forward 18 months later after that, there was a book that I could share. And there was a book about me living my life with my daughter. And there was a book about imagining my world with her. And that's how I live my life every single day to this day. So, the idea of thoughts become things, can be real. And in my personal opinion, I know people can skew it and, turn it into a million different ways. But I mean, at the end of the day, every new idea, every thought, every new creation that comes in this world, every way that you live your life, however you want to live your life, it all started with a thought at one point in time. And it's up to you what you want to do with that. But, for me, I want to live my life with my daughter every single day. And that's what I try to do. So the question for you guys is, well, love to get your thoughts on the reflection and your thoughts on thoughts become things, and then we can answer the question, I guess. But open up the floor to the rest of the group here.
Drew, do you want to go first or me?
You can go.
I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of truth to this. I think, like you said, a lot of people kind of spin this and kind of go a little bit nuts with this idea. But I definitely think, I've had goals that I've used this. I've had, tough moments in life where I've used this. I mean, my wife and I, we have a almost 10-month-old, and we had a miscarriage previously. And, we used, I know she really used it on focusing on, getting pregnant again, having a happy, healthy baby. And we have a very happy, energetic, healthy baby now. And I think just the fact that she thought about getting pregnant again, thought about having a healthy baby, I think, that changed probably how her body functioned. I think probably relieved stress. And I think it was part of the reason why we do have a happy, healthy baby. I think it also, you have to do the actions, whatever you want or believe, or, your outlook on something, you have to have the actions that align with it. I think some people think if they just wish something,
right,
happen. And that's where, kind of the tough, I guess, where it gets a little bit tough. So, I've also had situations where there was one moment in life where I went through some terrible, hard stuff. And, and it kind of goes back to the whole religion thing. I remember saying to God, basically saying, you know what, this is my life. This is where I'm at. I'm going to make sure I make the most of this and be thankful for what I have and not think this is the end of the world, and have a positive outlook on it and say, whatever this is, the rest of my life, I'm going to still live a happy life and make the most of it. And, those moments were very dark times for me where I thought my life's over. This is not, my life's going to be terrible, but I kind of changed my outlook, kind of envisioned a happy life and said, I'm going to make the most of what I've got. And I'm very lucky now. I have a very happy life. So, I mean, I think this is definitely true. I think it's about aligning the actions with those thoughts and reviewing, frequently, whatever that vision is. But I mean, I definitely think there is, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the universe. I don't know, you can talk like the book, The Secret, and all that stuff too. But I think there is somewhere in there's some truth. I don't think we fully understand yet.
Well, I mean, I think the literal reality is everything did start with a thought in somebody's head. I mean, none of the stuff in this world that humans live in exists unless we make it so, so the literal aspect of it definitely exists, I think. But to your point, like, I mean, I do think that you can get a little kooky sometimes with this stuff, but at the same time, there's some truth to, I think you made a really good point of tying action to the thought for it to ever become a thing. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, the book didn't become a book unless I spent every single day writing to my daughter and writing the book out. Like, I mean, it wasn't just, I could just put it on a visualization board and it would conjure up a book, you know, like that wasn't how it worked. I don't live every day of my life with my daughter still by just thinking about like living every day with my daughter. I perform actions with, you know, her and I every single day, you know, like that's how I live with my daughter. I live my values for her and living for two. But you're right. I think a lot of people forget the action point of all this. They think they can just think something and it just becomes, you know, like it's not how that works. Yeah.
Funny when you look at like, yeah, like I think again, the book The Secret, I think there are some good things that people should apply to their lives in that. And it sounds like in some ways maybe a little similar to this, but they also talk about one point, someone's like thinking about getting rich and like checks start showing up in the mail. And it's like, that's not
Right.
how usually these things work. Like,
Right. True. What do you got?
For me is when I heard the, you know, thoughts become thing, my thought is that everything that we made, everything that man made, starts from a thought. Everything, and every thought does not always become things,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And so to kind of add to what Blake was saying, it's a necessary ingredient to become things, but it's not all of the ingredients, right? It's just part of an ingredient. So thoughts is going to be needed, plus actions, plus I guess persistence in some sort. So there's a variety of different ingredients to make the things happen, but without the thought, the things won't exist.
Don't forget people. You know, others have to believe as well. A lot of times for the things to become a thing. For us all
Yes.
being on this conversation right now, like believing in the idea of living a balanced existence and
There's
Clubany, and
multiple
you know,
components
right.
in making it things, but
Yes.
but all of the ingredient must be there for it to manifest into things. And so it is one of the, I guess, fundamental ingredient that you have to have a thought before other things can attach itself and kind of, because to me, a thought lays a foundation. Because
Right.
without thought, there won't be an action. Because you know, the action cannot attach itself to nothing.
Yep.
And so to
It's like,
me, you know, a thought is a fundamental ingredient to become things. But we also have to be careful that not all thoughts are going to become things.
I
or
think
or good things. Like, I mean, like sometimes bad things, like as we've talked about a million times, like sometimes the biggest lessons you learn in your life are from things that, you know, were the hardest stuff and
Right.
the most painful stuff. I mean,
Understanding what ingredient needs to happen to make the things becomes a reality, manifests itself. Because sometimes there are things that you don't want, which is bad. So if you can suffocate the ingredient, that thing won't become a reality. For example, you want a hard life, right? You believe everybody's out to get you, then you will have a hard life because your thoughts create that foundation, and you put the actions and you put the fire into that thought. It will become a reality. You're gonna become paranoid. You become distressed. You become stressful. You're gonna have bad health, right? So it's understanding the fundamental. There's no, to me, it's both bad and good, depending on what it is that you're doing, like what it is that you're trying to concocting,
I
right?
think that analogy of it's an ingredient to a recipe. I think that's a really good way to put it. I also, two quick questions. One, what are the other ingredients you feel like, because first, you know, thoughts become things. I think it's thoughts, but I think it's other things. What are the other key ingredients? And then two, one, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. You know, there's also the whole thoughts of, hey, this is my thought. I'm going to do this. I'm going to live this way, and this is going to be the result. Where you do that, and then you get to the result, and you realize, wow, this is not the result. You know, something bad can happen from it. You know, I want to invest. I want to be wise with my money. Stock market crashes. Well, you know, that was, you might manifest this thought. I guess kind of curious on your guys' thoughts on, you know, how thoughts and positive thinking and believing in something can sometimes, and maybe it's just not going through the process and thinking about it enough, and can bite you in the butt.
It's like a baby to me. Like, you know, you can't, like, for Luca, right? For Cooper, for True, for all your girls, you know, like
For all your little army of girls.
what's yeah, you know, for when the thought is like the baby and an embryo, right? Like then it comes into this world and you need people to nurture it, to care for it, to put deliberate action. Like a baby can't survive on its own. I mean, that's by nature, right? You know, like you need other people, you need an army of people to help support that infant to grow and develop and nurture it, and you know, all that other good stuff. But at the end of the day, you have no control over what Cooper's going to be. What's that?
That second ingredient you would say is people.
Deliberate action and people. I mean, I think it's, you know, deliberate action and a community. Like, I mean, I think you need, for an idea to take hold in this world and to become a thing, other people have to agree that it is a thing, right? You know, otherwise it's just an idea in your head, and eventually, you know, unless you do something with it, it'll die, you know, and other people, like if other people don't recognize it, it doesn't become a thing. So and then the third thing is you can't, to answer your other question, you can't ever control what Cooper's going to do when he's 30 years old. At a certain point in time, you know, that idea takes on the life of its own, you know what I mean? The baby takes on a life of its own once it's fully baked and out of the womb, and you've nurtured it, and you've grown it to the point in time where it now has its life of its own, right? And then all of a sudden, you know, that thing becomes whatever that thing becomes. Like you can't control that, whether it's a good or a bad thing. I mean, you know, I don't want to even think this, but like, you know, like what if Cooper or Luca or any of our kids, you know, become like Hitler or something like that, right? Do you think Hitler's parents were like, you know, like that was like what, you know, what I had a kid, I did the right thing, I nurtured and cared for it, and it became Hitler, you know? Like, I mean, like that's you know, it's craziness, right? But at the same time, you can't control an idea once it's out in the world and it does its thing, you know. Once it becomes a thing, it's the thing.
Yeah, once it becomes a thing, then you have no control. You can nudge, but that's all you can do. But to me, it's the thought plus the actions, and the action comes as a consequences of the thought being, like, you know, kind of forceful enough for an action to trigger. So whether something you think about is important to you, and it outweighs whatever other value you have at a status quo, meaning, oh, I'm not going to do anything. When I'm doing something, it outweighs that status quo of not doing anything. Whether that, hey, I'm afraid of something or I want something to happen. So you trigger an actions, and the actions in itself supports the idea, right? The idea triggers the action, and action supports the idea to make that becomes a manifestation of something. So the idea becomes some sort of reality. And then after that, which becomes a baby, meaning that you can't really control, you can't really dictate what it needs, what it will become. Because it's, to me, at the end of the day, it's about a lot of luck, and randomness is also an ingredient of that thing becoming something.
Agreed.
I think too, one thing, again, my mind goes back to again, is the whole thing of balance, because I think, you know, you can say, I really want to be healthy, or I really want, you know, whatever it might be, and it can be your main focus and obsession. But if you don't have the balance in the other areas, how it can have negative effects in other areas of your life. I want my kid to be really smart. You know, you constantly are trying to push them to be smart and only focus on, you know, they get good grades, they're constantly learning, but you don't, you know, have the balance to say, okay, is this an emotionally healthy baby? Is this someone who feels loved and cared about? You know, do I let them explore their own, you know, their own interests? Like, I think it's, you know, going back to that balance and looking at whatever that goal is, and tying in the balance of your entire life, you know, or that entire being, or whatever it is. I think that, you know, that's super important, because you can end up with some, maybe get to your goal, but have negative effects.
Yeah. Like, I don't know why I always immediately go to Tiger Woods whenever I think of like thoughts become things, become something bad, right? You know, initially it started off with this kid with a dream, staring at his Jack Nicklaus poster going, I'm going to hit 18 majors or whatever the number was, you know, and he spent his entire life like focusing on that, but he forgot all the other dimensions of his world. And then that thought eventually started to become something real, you know, and it snowballed, and then all of a sudden it blew up. Like you said, like, you know, you can control a thought to a certain extent, when it becomes a thing, and you do that by trying to create an ecosystem where it can, you know, still thrive in the universe.
To me, it's all about the different ingredient that comes to surface attached to that idea.
Right.
And so I don't think Tiger wants to be that, that kind of Tiger Wood, right? It just happens to be that way because of the timing, the environment, or there happens to be the kind of culture that he's been in, kind of like introduced to. So I think it all boils down to that randomness of things attaching to whatever that idea was, and it turns into something different. And so whether it turns to be bad or good, it has to do a lot with luck as the ingredient.
I think luck is a big part of it, but I kind of in a way disagree. I think part of it is that self, I guess understanding of having a check in with yourself to say, is this affecting other areas of my life? This.
Yes, but that to me, that's part of luck though, because you don't value balance, right? Unless the balance ingredient somehow randomly attached to you. Yeah. You, me, and Chris had the luck of coming across balance, and we value that balance right now. Other people don't. They haven't come across that ingredient. So that has to be done to them for them to say, well, so even if I go and to tell Tiger Goodwood right now, you need to have balance. He say, well, I don't know what that is. Who are you to tell me what is balance?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
That's a good point. And is that luck? Is that, I see where you're coming from on that.
And to be fair, like Tiger Woods, if he did discover that early on, he may never be Tiger Woods. You may never know who he is. Like, I mean, who is the Tiger Woods of balance? Like there is no, you would never know that because it's impossible to know that.
Tiger Woods is an anti-example of balance. So if the balance ingredient has randomly flown, and attached to that Tiger Woods, he's not Tiger Woods, he's Tiger Balance.
Exactly. And you would never know who he is because he's probably living a fulfilled, happy life somewhere and just a random guy, and he's, yeah.
Maybe he could have been a guy who led a longer career that maybe wouldn't have won quite as many.
Maybe. Yes, exactly.
Maybe. Yeah.
We don't know. And that's the beauty of it. It's, it is unique in its own way, depending on the kind of random ingredients that happens to be nearby that it's going to attach to that idea or object and make it the thing it is, a thing it will be.
Back to Tiger Woods.
It's I don't know, it's just such a good example of unbalanced, but also, everybody we preach. We want everybody to be Tiger Woods these days. That's the prevailing sentiment in this world, is to be Tiger Woods until it falls off the rails. And you're like, well, how did you get there? And you're like, well, you guys kind of all led him down that road, that like that was like, I mean, we encourage it. We like to watch the show, but nobody wants to live that life,
Right.
Yeah. Michael Jordan's the same way. I mean, there are a lot of people who said, like, I did not like him,
Yeah.
And maybe he didn't go to the extreme of Tiger Woods getting, addicted to pain pills and all that, but because there was not balance, he had good relationships with people.
So to me, there is some part luck and some part having the commonality to attract the ingredients. Because, like, for example, me and Chris, right? We could have the same commonality of valuing balance. But for us to come together, that has to do with luck. Because,
oh my God.
Because the two objects that get nearby, they say, well, oh, you do this too, I do this too. So we get together. It attracts, right? But doesn't mean that it has to be in the same nearby location.
I've been wanting to tell you this, like, since the moment we hopped on. I totally forgot. I'm reading right now the autobiography of Will Smith. It's just called Will. And I just finished a section of when he met DJ Jazzy Jeff, which I don't know if you even know who these people are, True, but yeah, Blake, I'm sure you know who he is. It was by total happenstance, chance. They met at some like house party. He was supposed to be DJing for a friend in Philadelphia, and and Will was becoming a pretty good MC, and DJs were like the star of the show back then. Anyway, long story short, the first thing I wanted to say to you when you came on here was like, oh my God, you're like my Jazzy Jeff. Like, I mean, I like the fact that we like met each other through this whole entire world. Like when those two like met each other the first time, it was like, oh, let's get to fucking work, you know? Like, yeah, I get it. We're like, and then they became, you know, Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff, and they did their whole thing, you know, and but it was a total happenstance luck that they met,
Exactly.
you know? Yeah.
Right. So luck is not all of the universe, but luck is part of it, right? Because you know, I could come across someone who doesn't share my common value. We just bounce and it just bounce off of, and then we go our separate ways. But when you have somebody who has the same value, then it click. But there has to have the luck for those two persons to be nearby in the same like region, locality, whatever you want, you know, whether that's physical locality or, you know, mental or philosophical or whatever, metaphorical, whatever you want to call it, right? There's certain part of it has to be luck. There's certain part has to be some of the things that comes from the thought and the values that you carry.
I would encourage people have something they want to manifest, think about, they want, do, become, whatever. I would say my piece of advice, if anybody watched this, is find your Jazzy Jeff first. That's going to help you kind of get you know, find that first, because that's going to help you whenever, you know, that next step then is to figure out what that thing is. But I think that is really, I think, the core to.
I love that, but I would argue the step one is to know yourself really well. Okay, step two is to live the life that you say you want to live from knowing yourself. Then step three is find your Jazzy Jeff, you know what I mean? Like, and then get to work, and then the sky's the limit from there, right? You know,
I'll alter and say, when you talk about living it, I think you should find that person that's going to help you live it, because I think some people really need that support group to live it. But I think what you're saying is 100% actually, you're right. If you don't know yourself first, that is the first step. You're right.
Yeah. But it's really funny though. I mean, you're right. I mean, you are right. Like, for an idea to become, for what Drew and I are trying to do with Club Mini, like, I mean, it will become a reality, just because I know it will. Like, we're both dedicated equally to this cause and this mission. And if this thought becomes a thing, I know I have 100% confidence that this thing, it will become a thing, just because I know how aligned both he and I are. Now you as well. We'll add more people into this whole entire mix, and as we go, and we'll make it a thing.
The journey is going to be fun no matter what. And I mean, I'll tell you, just from my, you know, work life, if I didn't meet you, Chris, I think I would have a totally different view. I mean, that was probably the first person in my life that I think, in terms of work and just, I don't know, just, I think just, you know, as a person and how your outlook on life, I would say, kind of helped me and analyze some of my ways in life. And, you know, I don't think I would be the person that I am without that. So I think it's, you know, that relationship. So I think just those relationships and surrounding yourself with those people, I think those are things that we don't look at enough. And, you know, people who aren't positive influences in our life, who maybe we've been friends with our entire life, you know, having those thoughts of, hey, are these people really good for me? Are they, you know, moving me in the right direction? And, you know, sometimes you have to distance yourself or cut ties with those people, which is very challenging.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I think you need, well, I appreciate that, number one. And then number two, back at you. And then number three, I mean, I think you need to, if you want to make your dreams or visualizations or good or bad things happen, look at the people you surround yourself with, and that'll be a good indicator.
And the same goes for you, True.
Appreciate it, man.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, closing thoughts before we you know, leave this one and move on to the next one tomorrow?
Yeah, do what you believe.
I agree. Yeah,
right?
live what you believe. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I like it. So the question for anyone out there listening is, what do you really believe in? And I guess the second follow-up question should be, is how do you make that thought become a thing? Yeah, well, keep learning, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Yep, sounds good.